Oops, sorry, messed that one up. Come on. What is up, everybody? It is your boy Lou Martinez, aka Big Chief Burrito, here with another fireside chat with Big Chief Burrito. Not technically 100% the same as the Q&As that I've been doing for the San Diego Latino 27th edition virtual, but still, I am having a chance to talk with a lot of filmmakers. This is like my Christmas. I've gotten a chance to have a lot of interesting conversations with a lot of interesting filmmakers, documentarians, shorts, short docs, features, what have you. It's been an incredible last couple of days. I recommend that if you haven't already, go watch a movie, part of the virtual festival. And today, we're talking to another filmmaker that is part of this year's special Migrant Voices Film Challenge, sponsored by the San Diego Film Festival and the Union Tribune. There's like $5,000 in prizes, which is more than the San Diego Latino gives out. So it's an interesting there, you know, because did you want to be an official or did you want to be in the competition where you can make some money? Anyway, this is a Migrant Voices Film Challenge, which are movies that speak to about the migrant experience. And today, all the way from Detroit, Rock City, joining us is Jesus Arzola Vega. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on the pod stream, whatever live. Let's get right into it, man. Like, what is the your film is called A Small Mexican Town?
A Little Mexican Village.
A Little Mexican Village. And I watched it a couple of times, just sort of preparation for this. And what struck me the most is how both simple and complex it is at the same time. It seems like a very basic, standard documentary type story, but if you really start to think about the implications and things of what it really talks about, you can sort of, get an idea of kind of more of its weight. Is that something that you did on purpose? Kind of just sort of tell the story this way?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a very common story. That's why I called it A Little Mexican Village, because there's a lot like it. And I think it's one that a lot of people can connect to, because A Little Mexican Village refers to El Encino de la Paz, Durango, Mexico, where I was born. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, though, in case you can't tell by my white boy accent. I've been in America all my life, but I go back and I wanted to capture the story of this place because it is dying. And there are a ton of El Encinos out there. And not just in Mexico, right? This isn't exclusive to rural Mexico, but it's all over Latin America, where people are increasingly either migrating within the own country to bigger urban areas or immigrating abroad elsewhere. And so this village I was born in, when I was born in the early 90s there, it was like a few thousand inhabitants. Now it's about 300 and some change, right? And it's for a lot of reasons: globalization, climate change is making a farmer lifestyle more difficult, lack of opportunity, people seeking more education elsewhere. And I just wanted to make sure I preserve that memory before the village goes away and before my abuelita, who's still there, before she leaves this world. That's why I made that.
Okay, so this is not just a small Mexican village. This is your small Mexican village. That gives it an entire different layer. What was your fondest, or I guess the last memory you have of that place before you moved on?
Honestly, man, I don't remember anything. I was like, I think
too young?
4. Yeah, I was 4, and I don't know. Psychologists say that you start forming memories around that age, but I just don't remember a damn thing. Like, I barely remember growing up or just arriving to Detroit, but I had the fortune of being able to get residency and be able to go back. My mom would send me back in the summer, so I was still able to kind of grow up there in a sense in between school years. And I don't know, man. Like, I had a lot of fond memories of just like playing with friends there and like being able to experience that culture as a child, but also Detroit as a child. So I have a lot of fond memories there for sure. And like, I even from my own childhood till now, I've seen it change a lot. So it's definitely slowly dying, for better or for worse. Like, I always tell people, it's on the one hand, it's sad. But on the other hand, if places like this go away, a lot of ignorance does too. Like, there's machismo, there's misogyny, there's racism against the indigenous people, and there's just like a certain mentality, an older mentality that will die with the village. Which, for better or worse, it's gonna go away. The villages probably eventually, very soon, and so will these old and if you ask me, outdated ideas, right? So that's something I try to portray with the film too. Is that it's sad. But I mean, hey, good riddance to some of these toxic cultural ideas that will go with the village.
Okay, so you're battling against your own sort of upbringing there in a sense, right? You're basically saying this is a part of me, this is a part of my culture, this is important, but at the same time, I'm trying to look at it with a fresh eyes, I guess, so to speak, or like through a modern lens. But do you still have family? Your abuelita still there? Anybody else besides her, or is it just her?
Yeah, 2 uncles are there with their own families, and then I've got family here in Detroit as well.
Got it. And is this something that you were going to make anyway, or did you want to make this specifically for this challenge, or how did the process start?
So yeah, this is something I've thought about for years. Like, I actually studied economics in school, and I just learned filmmaking on my own through a bunch of YouTube tutorials and like other friends who were filmmakers and photographers and show me how to use a camera. But in studying economics, I learned about the changing demographics in the United States and Mexico, about immigration, about globalization. And it's all but certain that places like El Encino, by the hundreds, if not thousands across Latin America, are going to die. They're going to disappear. And I thought to myself, all right, well, this is something a lot of people can relate to. And not only that, but it's personal for me. So if a lot of people can relate to this, and I want to personally tell the story about my family, my abuela, my mom, where we all came from, it just made sense. It's something that I've been thinking about for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
So this was something that a story that you were gonna be eventually gonna tell either way, right? So it's not like you chose to do it just for this festival.
Yeah, it was something I definitely was gonna do either way.
So you studied economics. You seem more like somebody that might want to be like a professor or like a scientist or something like that. So filmmaking sort of came secondary to you, right? It wasn't like you always like walked around saying, I want to tell this story, I want to tell that story. It just, you realized at some point that it was there inside of you, right? Is that kind of more like how you started?
Sort of, yeah. I'm actually glad you asked that, Luis, because like when I was a kid, I really liked cameras. I like taking pictures, just messing around, whatever I could get my hands on. My mom had like a VHS tape recorder thing back in the early 2000s, and I was fascinated by it. And I knew when I was a kid I wanted to like make videos. But the thing is, and maybe you can sort of relate to this. I know you said earlier you're an immigrant yourself, or if you're the son or daughter of immigrants. If you tell your parents, I want an artistic career, that's almost like a slap in the face. It's like, why did I suffer so much for you? What te crees? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Growing up, just being a filmmaker just wasn't an option. So it was always just a hobby. But over the course of college and like, I've been out of college for like 5 years now, just working, adulting, I guess you could call it. I was able to like pursue my own career. I'm a political consultant now. I work in politics, but also pursue all the photo and video stuff on the side for fun, learning from free resources online and through friends.
Yeah, I mean, not only talking to your, I mean, I came a long time ago, but I spent a lot of time in my youth in Colombia, South America, Uruguay, everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, I understand that. But not only that, but even when I was growing up in New York and Queens, like if I was talking to people and saying, hanging around the handball court, and I was like, you know what, I really want to make an important documentary at one point in my life. They would say, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What is it? Yeah, and then even then, man, you're always going to get that because I kind of parallel to yours. I had a career that when I moved to California after I dropped out of film school, it was supposed to, just start working in film right away. But I needed a job, so I got a job at a call center. And it turns out that I can talk real good and I have a gift of gab and I'm good at managing people. So that kind of sidetracked into like a 10, 15-year career in like sales and political polling and a bunch of other stuff. But I didn't realize at the time that I was actually learning how to be a better director by learning how to manage people. So it's funny the things that we do in our lives that are careers that we don't necessarily associate with filmmaking that actually do make you a better filmmaker when you start the process. So I'm sure like your capacity for analytics and different things like that kind of gave you a propensity for your other stuff is actually something that helped you out. Now, obviously, when you make a political ad, it's different than making a narrative film, although you're still trying to elicit some sort of emotion, right? Do you find it difficult to use that power for good, as in your movie, versus doing it for like as a job? Is ever like a challenge within you about that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, maybe you can probably relate to this because like sometimes if you're assigned a video by a client, you have to follow their vision and narrative, and your creativity is a little restricted. But if it's something you're making for fun or a passion project or what have you, obviously it's just like your baby and you can tend to it and grow it however you would like. But at the same time, like full disclosure, I only work for Democrats.
Okay.
All of our clients at my firm, they're all progressive Democrats, a lot of young people, a lot of millennials, a lot of people of color, a lot of women. So at the same time, like I'm just because of my own personal values, I also feel free in my work, like more free than I think I would if I had to work for any other kind of politicians, because they're politicians I believe in that I think should be in office, that need to be in office. You don't need me to even go down that route right now. I mean, there's so many reasons why I could list that we need people like that in office. But anyways, I'll resist going down that route. But
this is my own personal stream, man. So speak on whatever you want to talk on. This is a free ranging conversation.
Good. No, I appreciate that, Luis. And in that case, then yeah, for sure. Like I will tell you very sincerely, like I love my job because I can get creative and support candidates, and I do feel a little bit restricted in my creativity, but it's a story that needs to be told, right? You need to have these politicians out there who are progressive, who are truly working for the people. So I don't feel that restricted, to be honest. It's kind of like the story of my village. I felt like it was a story that needed to be told. So in that sense, I don't actually feel too restricted by my work, if that kind of makes sense, because it's for stories that need to be told.
That was my follow-up question, because I just feel like if you have the ability to make compelling stories, and then all of a sudden you find yourself and you get a script and you feel that, okay, I can use my power here to tell this client story as good as possible, but I have no passion behind it because either I don't believe in the statement that they're trying to make, or I don't believe in the person who's giving me the job, right? So for somebody who's talented as a filmmaker and that can tell compelling stories like you have about your own village and something so personal, I'm sure there's got to be some friction there where you have to make tough choices about what kind of work you will and won't accept. Although it seems like you have put yourself in a position where you don't have to make that choice. If another firm came to you 2 days from now and they offered you 3 times what you make, and they said, yeah, but this is a battleground state, and we need a lot of ads that are going to be centered towards XYZ, etc. Is that something that you think you would be able to, very easily pass up?
If it's a Republican, yeah.
Okay.
No doubt. I don't give a shit if they pay me 10 times as much. I would never, especially in this day and age.
Just testing you, man. Just putting it out there, making sure.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
How was it? Okay, we got a comment here since Silvino Espino says Éxito Primo.
That's my cousin. That's my cousin down in Mexico. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, Silvino. Thanks for the comment. The challenge of putting your own family on film, right? Is that something that is it easier, just as easy as working with any other talent, or what were the complexities there?
I would say with them it was actually pretty easy because everyone in the video, obviously they're all residents of El Encino, and it's a very small village, and everyone knows each other. It's almost like even if so and so is my like third cousin, they still feel like your family to a certain extent. And all of them knew me and I knew them. Especially my grandma Concha, who appears most, who talks the most. It was just straight up like having a conversation. Like I told my grandma, like, hey, do you have some time today? I'm gonna make this documentary. I told her about it, and we made some coffee. I set up my camera. There was some nice lighting coming in from a window, and we just talked. I just had a list of questions in a paper, and I just listened intently, and it went really well. So honestly, it was effortless, man. Like it was just a conversation.
Do you just a one-man crew for this, or did you have any help?
Just me. Wow. Just me. Yeah. I didn't have anybody helping me out really in terms of technical capacity, but like I had cousins who lived there, and I was like, hey, can you guys like find me like some village elders who would be down to participate in this shit? And they were helpful in that respect. But as far as filming, sound, editing, that was all me.
How many hours of footage did you have when you sat down to edit?
That's a tough question. If I had to guess, I would say somewhere between 7 and 8. I was kind of in between jobs and just traveling through Mexico at the time. So I actually collected a bunch of footage in Mexico City and Oaxaca, other parts in the north. And so El Encino's in Durango, which is in the north. I also filmed on the border where Juarez is when I crossed over into El Paso. So all over Mexico, I'd say I collected probably 7 to 8 hours.
And then you're editing everything by yourself as well, right?
Yeah, that took about 6 months, rough guess. Yeah.
What did you? Did you always know that you were going to push more towards the documentary than the narrative side? Do you think that's just something kind of how you're built, or do you also feel that you have stories that you want to tell that are more on the narrative side?
That's a good question. I haven't put much thought into that. I would definitely say though, I lean more towards documentaries. Like the one other film I've made that even like merits the title of film that I think is like okay was about a group of friends of mine in DC. I used to live in Washington DC, and they're all dreamers. And this is at the beginning of the Trump administration. I just wanted to highlight their story to say like, hey, these are young dreamers who live in the nation's capital, right?
Sorry, and then I'm sorry, I got a little technical glitch here. But so one of the things that I thought was really interesting about your film was the music and then lack of music. Did you make a conscious effort to sort of make some of the scenes a little bit more jarring, just kind of with the ambient sound? Usually if you think documentary, small Mexican village, you feel like you're gonna hear certain types of sounds, et cetera, this and that. But the way the music dipped in and out, I thought that was a very kind of interesting choice that you made.
Yeah, I think with the music, I held off until the very end just to kind of like hit that emotional button or whatever. And I remember like trying to make that decision whether or not it made sense, but I think at the very end where the music began, where my grandma's talking about personal things, that's where it made the most sense. And so that's when I, cue the violins, you know what I'm saying? And that's where I think it made most sense.
Okay. No, sorry.
Very
But
good.
I guess you're trying to sort of put the audience in a specific sort of frame of mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that you're using kind of like a power? I mean, because obviously at its very basis, there's propaganda films that since there's been film, there's been propaganda, and do you feel as a filmmaker that there is a specific set of rules or standards or a fine line where you cross that from making a film with just artistic intention versus making a film, that's gonna like is specifically made to change people's mind?
Um, I honestly don't know. I think with this, I was just trying to tell the story of my village, in a pretty concise and simple way. But I also I wanted to make people feel some type of way. Like I wanted to like hit some emotional buttons. It sounds kind of corny and maybe a little bit dumb, but I think that sometimes if I make a good video or a good ad, it's only good. It's only really good if it makes you like cry or tear up a little bit, get a little emotional. And that was definitely my goal with this. I was trying to sort of edit it and like construct a story in a way so that people would say like, damn, that's sad, that's real, that's happening. There's plenty of places like that I can relate, and I feel that emotion with regard to this story and what's happening in this reality. That was kind of my goal, creatively and emotionally, was to make people feel a little sad, because it is a little sad, right? These villages are dying, and it's a story that a lot of people can relate to. That was my goal, was to make a lot of people feel this emotional devastation about the reality of these villages.
Did you ever? Because I'm assuming that it popped up into your mind since you're from there, but to make sort of the similar parallel story about Detroit as a city and how it's sort of not necessarily crumbling, but obviously it's a city that is once one of the top two or three cities in the entire U.S. Detroit was on par with L.A., New York, Chicago for a long time. Even at some point surpassing them in terms of industry, in terms of revenue generated, etc. And in its own form, it kind of went through its own, dying off. At least part of it. Is that something that you think, since you're from there, subconsciously maybe was in the back of the mind where do that, or did you ever sort of think to explore those two connections?
You know what? I hadn't really thought about that till just now, so I really appreciate that question. Luis, you're like making me explore new mental spaces. This is dope. No, man, but shit, now that you mentioned it, I think you definitely have a point, because if there's one thing that these two places have in common, that a rural village anywhere in Mexico or Latin America have in common, and Detroit of all places, it's the resilience of the people and the grit and resilience. Because people, you talk to any Detroiters are like proud as fuck to be Detroiters, right? And you talk to a lot of people from these villages, like in Encino, they're even if it's 300 inhabitants just left there, even if it is like they know that it's going to go away in the future, they're like, orgullosamente soy de aquí, trabajando aquí duro, humildemente, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think Detroiters definitely share that.
Yeah, no, like if you were like all of a sudden we're watching like this like washed out streets in Mexico, and then the next thing you know we're like seeing like a broken down factory in like Detroit or something like that. I mean, like that's that connection. I thought like, well, just now having known that that's your background, that's sort of kind of what came to my mind, which was it would have been an interesting exercise to sort of try to connect them to. Is there a thriving sort of independent film community or sort of like a underground film community in Detroit at all? Or do you find that people are more focused on like music, other things like that in that area?
There's definitely some artsy people out here for sure. A lot of photographers, a lot of people who paint some beautiful murals. As far as filmmaking goes, I only know a handful of photographers and videographers. But there's definitely a scene out here, probably not nearly as big as it is like in the Bay Area or LA or San Diego or New York, but there's a little bit of a scene out here. I think it's just a little bit more underground. But I mean, the city's changing a lot too. gentrification is the story of modern America, and Detroit is no exception because there's new people and new money coming in, and things are changing rapidly. So I wouldn't be surprised if the artistic scene actually benefits from that. If it's like more filmmakers collaborating with old filmmakers coming into town, or any type of artists, photographers, musicians, DJs, you name it.
What were your do you have any documentary filmmakers that you cite as like your main influences from because I think when I went to film school I had to make a decision whether I wanted to focus on documentary versus narrative film as kind of a study. And in my mind, I wanted to focus on documentaries because I feel there's specific ways that you need to go about the process of making a documentary. There's that theory that once you start filming something, you immediately change it. So it's not really acting as naturally as it would if it wasn't being viewed, even in nature. But, narrative film is just how you want to decide a story. I don't need to go to film school for you to tell me how I want to tell my story. But did you have any major documentary influences? Did you kind of look at anything like that before you dove into this, or is this fully your style that you're bringing out?
I definitely, one name comes to mind, Michael Moore. I've always been a fan of Michael Moore. I went to Michigan State University just like him, another Michigander. He's from Flint, Michigan, which I'm sure you probably heard.
Roger and Me is I've seen every Michael Moore documentary, but that's
hell yeah,
iconic, obviously. Right?
Yeah. I really like that his style of filmmaking is like about important issues that we should know about, but it's also like a little snarky. I wasn't trying to go after that. It's just something I admire about him. Where he's like kind of like funny and sarcastic, and he can present these like pretty dark and serious themes or these events, but in his own unique way where it's like not totally depressing. And that's a style I like, but that's not a style I was trying to go after. I think with my documentary, I just kind of went at it and see what came out of it. But if I had to cite a filmmaker I'd like and admire and definitely I would like to make something more in his style, Michael Moore, hands down. I love that man.
Would you insert yourself more into the story like he does, or do you still kind of want to keep a hands-off sort of? That's the style, because he makes himself the star of his own documentary in essence because he's a personality, right?
Yeah.
Versus being more like hands-off, one of the things that comes to mind is, I don't know if you saw it, but what's this guy's name? Guy that made a Tribe Called Quest documentary, but he was just all over it, and just he has such a distinct. I'm forgetting the guy's name, but it'll come to me in a second. If we weren't recording live, I would do the thing where I Google it and then I cut and then I make myself sound like I'm doing it. But we have a comment here from my good friend Enslaved by Vegetables who says, "Is Specs Howard still a thing in Southfield?" I don't know what that means. I think that's a Detroit question.
It is definitely a Detroit question. Southfield is like I guess you could call it a suburb of Detroit, and Specs Howard is a school, and I don't know if it's still a thing. That's a damn good question. It's like an ITT Tech kind of place, but okay. I haven't heard of Specs Howard in years until this random comment. But
that's a friend of mine, Enslaved by Vegetables. He's actually from Southfield, and
no way.
He does a lot of the music from my films, so that's why he's watching. Shout out, Kurt. Do you feel that being from Detroit, why haven't you done a Jay Dilla documentary?
Ooh, it's about time, right? It's about time for me to do that.
It's about time somebody made the definitive Jay Dilla documentary.
He deserves it, yeah. And I definitely need to like learn more about my own history of the city and like some of the figures who had an important role in history.
Film that, I'll edit it, man. We can do that one together.
Hell yeah, let's collab. I will tell you this though. One thing I made recently was I made 2 campaigns for my friend Gabriela. She's young, millennial, immigrant, woman of color, queer, and she was running for office. And I made these 2 campaign videos for her for free. And it was just something that I wanted to do because I wanted to make sure she got into office. She lost her primary, but making a video about Detroit for a Detroiter running for office in Detroit, that was fucking amazing. Like I really, really enjoyed that experience, and telling the stories of people like her, like young people who are doing important shit in Detroit. That's something I really, really enjoyed.
I mean, you definitely got the passion for it. I mean, where do you see yourself? Is that, I mean, if that's the thing that drives you the most, then I guess that's kind of where you're going to follow it, right?
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, I'm out here right now thanks to the pandemic. My job's all remote, so I'm going to be out here for the foreseeable future. And I think that one beautiful thing about Detroit that is unique to it compared to other big American cities is that because we went through hell and back, there's more autonomy here. Like if you want to start a restaurant, a bar, a nonprofit in a New York, in a San Francisco, in an LA or San Diego, maybe you need a lot of capital. You need a lot of money. You need investments. You need connections, this and that. You need space. But in Detroit, guess what? Like you don't need that much money. You don't need that much capital. You don't need a fucking network. And there's hella space here. There's fields for urban farming, man. Like it's a very, very. I feel free here. There's a lot of freedom here and autonomy here that you don't get in other big cities.
When you think of like being a part of a festival, because I mean, obviously for me it was a local festival. It's 27-year edition. It's you can say basically like Chicago, New York, LA, San Diego. Those are four of the major Latin themed film festivals. This is a movie that you've had for when you got that acceptance. Kind of what kind of emotions did you go through for that when you knew you were part of this competition?
I felt really happy. I was like, damn, this is kind of a big deal. And like, I felt that it sort of legitimized my project to a certain extent. There was one other film that I got an award for, but it was like the first time that the film was running. And so it was just like, all right, cool, that's cool. But for some reason, this felt a little different. And I definitely I don't know, I just felt surreal and happy. And it felt to have like my work recognized by this film festival. And when I did a little bit of research in the San Diego Latino Film Festival, I was like, wow, it's been going on for a while. And I looked into some of the past recipients. I was like, damn, I'm like among these people. Like I was pretty damn happy, to say the least.
No, man, absolutely. Being able, I mean, there's the thing of it now is that there's film festivals and then there's film festivals, because there's this entire industry that is built upon taking your money and my money to submit to film festivals. And some of them will say, hey, it's a virtual film festival only. Some of them will say, hey, submit to the March edition. You can't curate a different film festival March, April, May, June. So any festival that has a monthly competition, that they're not putting as much effort into it as possible, or the ones, and it used to be, one of the ways you could tell which festivals were good and which festivals were not worth your time was if they were like virtual online only. So it's a weird dynamic right now when all these major festivals have made the move to either a drive-in festival or a virtual only festival, etc. But the fact that it's been around for 27 years, and Ethan left a comment on the other video, said you had a great video, Jesus. The fact that Ethan, Moises, and Juan really take the time to curate it, and the fact that they have these opportunities for young filmmakers and filmmakers from all over the world is incredible. I've been able to talk from people from Germany to Switzerland to Argentina to Peru to Mexico to Detroit now. Hey, but how many festivals has this gotten into, or how many are you still in the middle of sort of doing the festival run for it?
So far, just two. I definitely have been slacking on applying to other new film festivals, but the first one, and like I said earlier, the film festival that it was chosen for, it was the first time this film festival was ever running. It was called the Super Duper Diversity Film Festival. It was in Hollywood. This was like last fall, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, it was dope.
If that's not a 2020. Nice.
Yeah, funny. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting name, but yeah, it was the first time they ever ran their festival at all, right? So I don't know. That felt a little different than this, like I said earlier. But so far, it's just been two that I've been in an official selection for. But I definitely should probably check out other festivals, see what else is out there, and just I don't know, meet other people and check out other people's work, because something I enjoy too about this, like just before we got on this call, I was telling you I saw another filmmaker's film about people praying at the border at Tijuana. Muslims and Christians praying together. That was amazing. Like I love to check out new people's content,
No, it one of the reasons that I volunteer for this is because of the access that it gives me, because they let me watch the movies that I'm going to do QAs for, and it humbles me as a filmmaker to see that there's people in Guatemala that are just fucking going out there, setting up the tripod and getting fucking to work, and that they're putting out quality stuff that looks like I could have shot it here on a red. So it's definitely that's the thing that's the best part about film festivals is coming together, meeting new filmmakers. So not only do I want to promote the film festival, but I also want to promote other new up and coming voices and also make connections with different voices. So anybody that's watching, make sure that you guys definitely, because there's still another week in the festival, go to sdlatinofilm.com, buy tickets to one of the showings. The Migrant Voices Challenge, that is what Jesus is a part of, will be tomorrow. Do you know what time the screening starts tomorrow?
I'm not entirely sure. I forgot to check that. My bad.
Okay. At some point tomorrow, his film will be showing virtually, and he doesn't know what time. All right, never mind. I'm just giving you a hard time. And then remember, guys, if you guys are watching, drop a like on the street. A like on the helps us out. If you want to make sure you follow us so when we go live, Facebook.com/2mburrito, Twitch.tv/2mburrito, and YouTube.com/2mburrito. See, I made it all easy for you. It's all burrito related content. Jesus, recently, a lot of I've been freaking out about the new Oscar diversity standards that have been set for the next couple of years in terms of wanting to nudge people in the direction of 30% inclusion, including either actress, writers, cast, and crew. For me, this means that I have to make a zero change in how I make films. For a lot of for most Latino filmmakers, they have to change nothing about how they make films. Have you noticed this sort of overcorrection backlash of people saying, "Oh my God, my art is dying. You're making me think about gender and adding people to my production team that I don't really associate with." Have you noticed the freak out?
A little bit. I mean, I think over the last few years, there's definitely been a shift in like directors and casting and people wanting to include more directors and filmmakers of color and women. And definitely, I think recently John Boyega from Star Wars made some headlines because he was like, look, they just put me and forget my memory, but there was another female actress who was just casted for Star Wars, but he basically said they put me and her in the movie just as like tokens so that they could look good.
And they never let our story go anywhere.
Yeah. So like, first of all, I'm not shocked by that really, or what he said about how Disney handled that. But I will say this, like, good. I mean, like, it's about damn time. Shit. Like, I think it's definitely important that people see themselves represented. Like Chadwick Boseman's passing recently, I think probably for a lot of young Black boys, I don't want to speak for them, but I imagine that it's just like so powerful to see somebody who looks like you on screen and be like, that can be me. I can be the hero, because for so long it was just like the protagonist of every action hero movie or most movies, just like some white guy. So I'm all for it, man. I think it's good.
No, I just thought it was very funny that people were acting like their artistic integrity was being questioned just because they're acting. You can maybe have an assistant director or a producer, a DP, a casting person, an actor, maybe not have 6 white guys in your movie, maybe have some color. Like, it's not that big of a deal. At the end of the day, if you still want to make a lily white movie, you can make a lily white movie. You're just not going to qualify for the Oscars. It's a private organization, and they're trying to change a couple of things about how they've universally been perceived, and about the fact that to vote for an Oscar, you have to either have been nominated or have won an Oscar. And if all the movies and all the nominations and all the things are nothing but white on white on white, then obviously it's going to have a little bit of an issue with it. There's,
See, I had no idea. Like, I just learned that important fact about how voting works and having to have one to vote for one. That's something I think pretty important, because that has implications.
The majority of the Oscar voting is 60, 70-year-old people that might have won or been nominated for an Oscar in 1966. Like, I knew a lot of people at the Academy that had gotten nominated and won Oscars for Barbra Streisand movies from like the 70s and 60s and different kinds of stuff. And once you're in for life. So it's 2000 something. You're 80 years old. You get to go to the Oscar movie theater, watch movies for free anytime you want. They send you boxes of DVDs. Well, back in the days when I used to get the hookups, it was tapes. But they send you boxes of tapes and DVDs of movies to watch. And your opinion as a 70, 80-year-old voter that won an Oscar in the 60s is just as relevant as a 26-year-old that won an Oscar two days ago. You know, so I think what Oscar has done is they're going to try to take away some of the forever voting rights of some of these people to try to bring some newer voters into the mix. And they're trying these diversity initiatives to sort of, you know, nudge people. But the key part of that in my rant, I apologize for going on for so long, is that that some people have to change absolutely nothing about how they make movies. So if you're a person that automatically says, oh my God, I have to change everything about how I make a movie, then really there's a bigger conversation you should be, having with yourself, right? There's more there, because I always say at the end of the day, it's your movie. Make the movie you want, but at least think about the choices that you're making. At least be open to saying this, you know. And like you were talking about the death of the patriarchy, the old sort of thought process, you know, as a filmmaker that grew up in the 80s and was a beneficiary of Latin culture and the patriarchy, you know, treated like a king and stuff when I was a little kid my entire life, right? I had to, venga pa acá, niño, ¿qué necesita? ¿Quiere comer algo? You know? Yep. I had to learn how not to be masochistic and sexist when I was in film. And I had to sort of have that conversation with myself why I had these thoughts and sort of eliminate them for them. So, you know, if somebody can evolve, if I can evolve, everybody can evolve, you know, and you can still stay true to whatever story you want to tell, you know. And now 90% of my production team is usually female. Like I have a set of like super strong women that back me up on tons of things in my projects that allow me to do what I do. So anyway, so segue.
Oh, it's awesome.
Segue into a comment. Arturo says,
yeah, that's my roommate from college.
Shout
outs.
Yeah, gotta get the shout outs from the family, man. What's the first movie you remember like obsessing over when you were growing up?
Ooh, I like this question. You know, I probably shouldn't have seen it, but I did when I was a kid. I saw a movie Blood In, Blood Out because my sister was my babysitter, and it was just her and I and my brother and my sister's then boyfriend. And she's like, my boyfriend and I gonna watch this. If there's bad parts, cover your eyes. But I could see through my hand. I have a space in between my fingers. I saw it all, man. And that shit was like, you know, to like I don't know how old I was, maybe like 8 or 9. There's like a lot that happens in that movie. I don't know if you're familiar with Blood In or Blood Out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine. But yeah, for anybody listening who might not be, like, it's extremely violent and graphic about gangs. So little probably puppet. Not the most. Yeah.
Don't look at me, little puppet. Yeah, it's definitely.
Definitely not appropriate for little kids. But I think I just spent a lot of time like trying to understand that, process that movie. But I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I saw it when I was a kid. Probably shouldn't have, but it made me certainly like try to question like, who are those people? Why do those bad things? What's the story about? What's this all about? And I think that maybe watching that and other horror movies that I probably shouldn't have seen as a kid made me very analytical, because when you're a child and you're innocent, you don't understand what the hell it is you're watching. You just try to figure things out. And I think maybe watching that and Chucky when I was a kid and Freddy Krueger, it made me really analytical with film. And I was like, what is going on here? You know?
That's cool. I think that when you have access to those films as a kid, it obviously, you know, enlightens you all of this stuff. All right, we have hey, Dizzy stopped by. This is Dizzy. She's, I don't know what that is. Is that a princess emoji?
It's a little print. It looks like Sailor
Moon. Thank you for watching, Dizzy. Everybody go watch her on Twitch. It's a hello. Okay, thank you. Hello.
Nice.
Thank you for watching. Because of your industry that you're in, and we're gonna do a little transition here real quick because I gotta justify that I paid for these. So hold on. I have a whole transition package. I want to use it. So,
that's pretty cool.
When you're working in politics, right? You know, on the periphery, creating ads, doing stuff, you know, choosing to church with Democratic campaigns. Just since it just happened, what is your thought process about kind of like this fight that's about to happen about replacing a chief justice like 40 days before an election, right?
Oh man,
because we're allowed to talk about whatever. So this is the political segment.
Yeah, no, all right, bring on a political segment, man. I think that staying sane in politics nowadays, is very difficult. A lot going on. And it's so hard to keep track of. I think everyone feels overwhelmed and exhausted in American politics these days. But with RBG specifically, first of all, RIP. She was an incredible leader, to say the very least. That's an understatement. She made such a big difference for women in this country, and like, she should have her dying wish met. And that was, and I think this is the quote verbatim. It was like, my most fervent wish is that my replacement is not selected until a new president is elected or until the elections are over, something along those lines. I think we need to respect the shit out of it. I think we need to like really, really just do what we can to delay a replacement, because it has consequences. And unless you work in politics like I do, or you just like a political junkie and you keep up with these things, like, or you study civics, I don't know, you truly realize that a Supreme Court justice pick has like probably more consequences than a fucking presidential election. Like, we got in Brett Kavanaugh 2 years ago. That dude is, I think, in his 40s. I'm 26. He's gonna be in there until he's in his 80s probably, which means I'll be in like my 60s. Like, this guy is gonna be around for a long time. And so if the Republicans in the Senate manage to ram somebody through in the next 40-something days until elections, that person, whoever they pick, who's probably going to be very conservative, very right-wing, possibly right-wing extremist, like whoever they pick, the point is they're going to be around for a long time. And not until you work in politics, study politics, that you realize this probably has like more consequences than a presidential election. And President Trump got 2. He's going to get 2 picks if Republicans have their way. And that's just surreal and daunting and a little scary.
What was the one that they held up for Obama? Was Garland, right? Somebody.
Merrick Garland, yeah.
Merrick Garland. Okay. So here's a scenario that would probably freak everybody out. Trump selects Garland to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like in an ultimate like deep fake like reverse double psychology movie. I mean, that would freak everybody else out, because you wouldn't know whether you'd have to argue against replacing them or what, right?
And that would freak me out. I'd be in disbelief. I would just be like, what? We're officially in Black Mirror. If we weren't already in fucking Black Mirror, we are in Black Mirror or Twilight Zone or what have you. We're in some weird alternative reality if that were to happen. Although I'd be cool with it. He's a good guy.
The darkest timeline has been confirmed. I guess, is there anything to the fact that they are probably, even though it's going to make them look stupid because they put it on wax. Every single Republican has put it on tape that in 2016 we can't have this happen in an election year. We're going to set a precedent. We're going to fix it. Use my words against me. Okay, even though they realize that they are going to get their words used against it, does the fact that they're still going to try give you any sort of alternate thought where it makes you think, damn, they're scared that Trump's going to lose? Because if they were a bit more confident that Trump was going to win, I don't think that they would, because if you think Trump is going to win, then you can sort of play this off a little bit, be like, look, we're going to try to get it done because we believe it's our job, blah, blah, blah. But there's the fact that they are going to try to push this, because as you said, it's probably more important for them to get a conservative on the court than if they could have one or the other. One more conservative judge or Trump for 4 more years, which would obviously guarantee like 1 or 2 more appointments. But I think that they almost would rather have they're gonna. Does that kind of resonate with you at all as kind of a theory?
Yeah, I think that a lot of Republicans in the Senate and like Republican political operatives are probably thinking that there's a good chance Biden's going to win, Trump's going to lose, even though election day might drag out to be election fucking month because of the delays in COVID. But anyways, I think at the end of it all, Trump, he's looking like he's not going to win. And that being said, if they had to sort of sacrifice a pawn to sort of get a better move politically, strategically, to seal their power, then yes, I think a lot of Republican operatives are thinking, okay, well, this election probably going to lose it, but we can ram another confirmation through the Senate like we did 2 years ago with Brett Kavanaugh. So fuck it, we'll do that and seal a conservative majority on the United States Supreme Court for a generation, for like fucking decades, 30, 40 years.
So even if Collins and Romney vote no, Mike Pence still has a tiebreaker there, right? Or do they still need one more Republican to come over to be able to block it?
Yeah, so it just depends on what people actually end up doing, because politics, people say something and then do another thing. That's true now, it's true anywhere, it's always true in politics, unfortunately. But I don't know, it just depends. Romney's definitely going to dissent. I mean, he's just basically dropped out of the Republican Party, and he's gotten a lot of respect. He marched with Black Lives Matter protesters in DC, like, man, mittens. We call them mittens. I like mittens. Anyways, I think it just depends on if the senators who claim that they're going to dissent, who are part of the GOP, the Republican Party, if they actually stay true to their word and do so. Because the senator from Maine, refresh my memory here, Susan
Collins, right?
Yes, yeah. She claimed at first, she was like, I don't know, with Brett Kavanaugh, I don't know if we should do this. Maybe we shouldn't vote on this guy. I just, we might want to wait. Oh, I don't know. Let's wait till the Senate hearings go through. And then she ended up doing it anyways. A lot of people just say that she was just kind of delaying the inevitable and making herself seem like a little less partisan for political power and optics. But I don't know, man. I really hope that they don't do it. But if they do, and something that Democratic operatives have been discussing is that anything is on the table come 2021, excuse me, when we have Biden in the White House and Kamala, and ideally also a Senate majority of Democrats, right? The Senate is leaning Democratic. So if we have those two things in the bag, then fuck it. We'll do whatever we want now that we have power for a little while. We'll make DC a state, which will give us a representative in the House and 2 senators that'll probably be Democratic. We'll make Puerto Rico a state, which will give us another representative and 2 senators. And fuck it, we'll make the Supreme Court bigger so that there's not just 9 justices on it, but 12 or more, and we'll appoint all the new ones.
That is some very progressive state building right there, man.
I hope it happens, man. They deserve it.
Do you feel that, like, and I guess one of the examples was like with the Al Franken stuff, with the Me Too movement and things like that. Do you feel that the Democratic, and I'm not necessarily a Democrat. I was a Bernie supporter, and I feel like I'm more like an independent myself. Although obviously as a Latino, I do have a lot of left-leaning political views. My main topics of concern are like immigration, stuff like that. But do you feel that Democrats a lot of the times just take their foot off the gas and sort of still refuse to sort of play dirty in terms of being able to just being hard on political situations, hitting people hard with different things? I feel like they take their foot off the gas a lot. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah. I think that ever since Bernie gained momentum and showed that there's a lot of really young progressives in this country, there's been a little bit of a rift. And I think that there's like part of the Democratic Party that's like with him, with AOC, with Ariana Presley, like who are very all about the Green New Deal, all about tackling climate change, all about like defunding police and these other like what used to be very radical ideas just 10 years ago. A lot has changed real quick, that are now considered Democratic mainstream, almost, you could say. And there's them, and then there's the people who are more Democratic centrists that have been in politics for a while, since Bill Clinton in the 90s or earlier, who, for whatever reason, still think that it's like more important to try to focus on a centrist Democrat. Like, there's people who run for office who say, all right, there's still some independents left who might not be decided between our party and the Republicans, who are kind of in the middle, who maybe feel certain ways about certain issues, and we just have to like not get too extreme and not get too aggressive so we can get them on board with this, right? They focus on that. And then there's other progressives who I personally identify more with, who say there's thousands of like poor Black men and Latinos and all these people who've never fucking voted in their life. Let's get them on board. Let's get them on board and let's push for these things. I think that's the way to go. I think that's where the Democratic Party is headed, no doubt.
Obviously, I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the DNC establishment. Obviously, not just because of how they treated like Bernie, but just kind of the fact that they that they're still, I think, very beholden. they have, I think, these well-meaning thoughts that they hide behind, but at the end of the day, they're also trying to kind of play both sides. They're trying to get, progressives, or they're trying to get Latinos and stuff like that, but they don't want to necessarily go full Bernie. They don't want things to change too much. They basically have this idea that we want to make things better. Where I think the Bernie sort of AOC sort of movement, it's let's make things completely different. Let's reimagine. So I think the defund thing is a bad, it's more like a reimagined police really that they're trying to do. So, but they kind of want something completely different. Do you agree with the sort of Democratic establishment sort of goal of telling all these other progressives, okay, we hear you, but not right now. Right now, we just need you to all get in line, take your Biden-Harris pill, and let's just make things a little bit better so we're not all freaking the fuck out. Is that sort of right?
Well, first of all, I love that phrase, Biden-Harris pill, and I'm definitely stealing it, Luis. I hope you don't mind.
Go ahead, take it.
But yeah, man, I think that I think they're definitely the minority in the Democratic Party who still want to stick to a less aggressive approach and a less progressive approach and a more centrist approach. I think they're the minority, and I think they're slowly going away. But the issue is that it's old money and old politics. It's people who have been in the party for a long time, who have a lot of influence, a lot of connections, who still share those views. And it's a lot of the new young blood, with the exception of Bernie, I guess you could say. But it's a lot of new young blood who are really changing up the game and changing the platform and making things like defunding police, ending private prisons, tackling climate change. That is the future of the Democratic Party, without a doubt. And I think it's definitely going to take a little longer to get there than we think, because people who have been in office a long time are usually hard to get out. And believe it or not, man, I think it's a lot harder to unseat an incumbent from your own party than it is to win an election against somebody from an opposite party, right? For example, I'm blanking on her name, but there's a woman who just won a primary, a young black woman in, I think in Missouri, and she was a Black Lives Matter activist. She tried 3 times to run for office, right? Third time's a charm, I guess, because it worked for her. And there's just a lot of people who, within your own party, when you run against an incumbent, it's a lot harder. It's more difficult to distinguish between the two candidates and separate yourselves than it would be for a Democrat running against a Republican. Hopefully that makes sense. But basically what I'm trying to get across here is just that unseating those who've been in their seats for a long ass time takes a lot of work, and it's really hard, especially in the pandemic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, live voting has started at 25 states so far. So I think that like I said, I didn't think that putting up Biden was the best choice as a candidate to put against Trump. I guess the DNC's thought process is, we could run a ham sandwich right now and probably win. So let's go ahead and just put somebody that doesn't scare, that pulls in the black vote, as Biden did, better than Pete and better than a lot of other people that they sort of tested out. Let's give fucking Bernie the old screwball 4 years later again, and let's just have everybody drop. Every moderate drops out and combines forces with Biden like Voltron, right as Bernie's at the lead. And let's sort of keep this little power structure we have for just a little bit longer, right? But where do you see the future? Where do you see the future of the Democratic Party going?
Definitely more towards the platform of young progressives, and I think ironically with Bernie in particular, you can say that sure, he lost the presidential nomination of the Democratic Party twice. It's unfortunate. Even though a lot of people liked him, but he won in the sense that he shifted the entire platform because he was so popular in 2016. A lot of the things that he argued for are now mainstream, are considered part of the ordinary quote unquote establishment Democratic platform. But yeah, in short, I see it becoming younger, blacker, browner, gayer, and just a lot more diverse, because honestly, man, I don't see how you can sort of stand for the values that the Democratic Party is now stands for and the goals that you stand for without being part of those communities as well. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel about the Lincoln Project ads that have been sort of hitting Trump pretty hard? Have you seen those sort of ads on Twitter and stuff?
Oh yeah, my coworkers and I share that on our group chats all the time. They do a damn good job. I want to know who's editing their videos and like hang out with them and have a beer with them.
They're quick. They're quick.
They're very good. Yeah, I will say this though. Lincoln Project is like up until now they like reached this notoriety with those really good edits, those really good videos. They were just supporting like Republicans and like they had they're neoconservatives. They have their own agenda. But for now, they're awesome. They're great. 100%. I love fucking Lincoln Project videos, man. They're really, really well edited.
If you were in charge of the Biden-Harris video campaign, what would your advice to them be, like, in terms of, you know, make the types of ads that you guys think work, but you should absolutely do this?
Ooh, that's a damn good question. I like that. I think it would help to. I mean, it's also hard because with political ads, they have to be short. They're the kind of ads that play before you watch your TV show on Hulu, or if you're watching, you know, your ad block is disabled and you're on YouTube or whatever. They're really short.
Trump made a major ad buy, like when the DNC was happening. You couldn't watch a video on YouTube without getting a Trump ad in front or being in the front of it.
Yeah, that's definitely accurate. And the thing is like, you have to somehow figure out a way to get a good message across in anywhere between like 6 to 15 to 30 seconds. I think that's the chunks that they come in when you run an ad on some of the most common platforms like YouTube, like Hulu, etc. But I don't know, man. I think in short, I think it's always good to tell genuine stories in political ads. I think the way you get across to real people is by showing them real stories. And I always appreciate it if they include a story about somebody who has a good reason to vote for a candidate, right? So if somebody, I don't know, like lost somebody to COVID-19 recently and you know, they felt like the government could have done more if it was a frontline worker, an essential worker, that's a good story to tell because obviously it's very clear between which presidential candidate is going to take this shit more seriously and who's going to do more to get PPP out there, do more testing, etc. So yeah, it sounds a little cliche, but in short, I think telling real stories about real humans, real voters, is the best way to communicate and get your message across and just connect genuinely.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, because I think that sometimes you don't hear the messages unless it's coming from somebody that looks like you. Unfortunately, so you can. Amen. So I think that it means that they should put a focus on real people. You know, Bill Clinton was great as that. He's like, I met a woman from North Carolina. You know, exactly that whole thing. Where do you see yourself going from this? Do you? I mean, obviously you need to get on getting to a couple of more niche festivals to up your rep there with this project. But after that, I mean, obviously you're working in the political field. It's going to be a busy next few months, I would imagine. But as a creative mind, have you thought about what the next topic that you want to cover is? Do you guys does that mill in your head in the back of your head for a while before you start actively working on it, or what do you see yourself working on, you know, 2021, regardless of who's president?
Yeah, definitely. So I think on a personal level, there's a few projects I've been thinking about for ages now. I think the story of Flint, Michigan is really important to tell, and there's already been a few documentaries that did a really good job of it. So it's competition, I guess, but I think telling the story about Flint and what happened there with lead poisoning in the water is something that the nation should learn more about. Yeah, that young millennials running for office, young Latinos running for office is something that I would like to tell a story about farther down the road, like just collecting stories of people who ran for office, like my friend Gabriela, who ran and lost her primary, unfortunately, in August here in Detroit. But telling those kind of stories would be dope. And I've done some freelance work for an organization called Run for Something. Shout outs to them. They're an awesome org. They recruit young millennials, progressives, people of color, people of the LGBTQ community to run for state and local office, which is, I think, something that's really underappreciated because we're so focused on what's going on in Washington, D.C. sometimes because that's what's like sexy or sensational or like covered mostly on the news, when your day-to-day life is actually a lot more affected by who's your state rep, who's your state senator, who's your county commissioner, who's your mayor, etc. And
school board president
for something. What was that?
Who's your school board president? Who's, you know?
There you go. And I can't. Yeah, most people can't name it, unfortunately. And I think if we all got more civically active at the local level, and we had more people that look like you and I, that you know, are Latino, that are people of color, running for local office, will transform this country. And I think telling those stories is important too, to know that there are people making that effort, like my friend Gabriela, like many other young people running for office. So I think down the line, I'd really like to make a film specifically about young Latinos running for office at the state and local level. That would be a really cool story to tell.
Hey, that sounds very interesting, man. I hope that you let me know about that. I can help. I can see if I can help you out with that, putting together some resources for you or something. Let's circle back to the film and stuff like that. I know that and again, we're talking with Jesus Arzola Vega from a small Mexican village, right?
A little Mexican village.
A little Mexican. I always mess it up. A little Mexican village, which is a very personal sort of mini story, mini doc about, you know, the decline of the, you know, and this is pertinent to myself, you know, as a Colombian, because a lot of the smaller villages in Colombia are being eliminated, either pushed away by drug dealers for plantations or by paramilitary apparatus, etc. And it's happening in all over South America, all over Mexico, where, you know, the village life is coming to an end. And one of the main things that you talk about is that young people are not really about that simple farm life or that simple village life. I mean, it is something that I think is now only for the people that mostly for the poor, right? It's mostly for people that are either stuck in their ways, they're just stuck in their lifestyle or stuff like that. But when you get presented with, right, you can play in the playground, you can have your elders around you, you can be in this very sort of almost sacred place where your ancestors are from, or you can go to the mall, you know, or you can go, you know, be part of like a thriving art community or something else like that, etc. I mean, it's almost like there's not really a choice between you from a young person, right? It's you can't stop. You can't fight the youth, and you can't stop progress.
Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head. I think that there's two big forces at play that are leading to the sort of death or the end of these kind of places, of these little villages. Is that it's the internet, it's communications technology that allows these like young people to see, oh, there's this whole world out there that like I could go check out and see and explore and learn and meet new people and grow and make money, things like that, travel. The internet's one factor, and you know, communications technologies, and then the other factor is globalization itself. It's a lack of opportunity, that's obsoleting like the farming lifestyle, because like, pardon me for being frank here, but like if you grow up in that place where I was born, I immigrated, but still have cousins there who I keep in touch with. You have two career choices. You can be a fucking farmer and have this like subsistence lifestyle that's like kind of it's basically poverty. Even if you work hard, even if like you get a lot of rain, it's poverty. Or you go into drug trafficking, you go into the narco world. Those are your two career options. If you're a woman, it's even less. You have one. It's usually just being a housewife, because even though it's 2020, these places are still stuck in like the cultural norms and expectations of like, I don't know, the 1930s maybe. So given that's another thing. Globalization offers new opportunities, for better or for worse. And when you're a young man in these villages and your only option is farming or getting into the illicit drug industry, or if you're a young woman and your only option is popping out a bunch of babies, like obviously it's very appealing to leave, you know, and that's the reality.
All right. Well, I want to remind everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for the comments. Remember that the San Diego Latino Film Festival in its 27th year and now in a virtual edition is going on right now. All the movies that have premiered this week have an extra showtime next week. It goes on until next Sunday, so you definitely have a chance to I think it's like $9 to watch a movie or something like that. Watch something, pick a movie, pick a topic, pick a block, watch a bunch of shorts, watch a bunch of horror movies, do something. But, please support one of the most important and iconic Latin film festivals in the United States. Thank you for watching, everybody. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube. Where can they? Do you have a brand, or do you have a site for the movie where people can follow you, watch, and kind of follow your progress?
Yeah, you can just follow me on Instagram. I've got a link in my bio to like my creative portfolio and my Vimeo and stuff. My Instagram is just Latin_feels with a Z.
Latin underscore what?
Underscore feels with a Z. That's it.
FIELZ.
FEELZ.
Latin feels. Okay, like in the feel,
Yes,
you got me like okay, like that. Let me see if this is the right one.
There you go. That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay, give me a second here. Let me just there you go. All right. Well, hey man, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me today. Everybody, the Migrant Voices Challenge is tomorrow, where Jesus's film is up against a few I think I've seen about 75% of the entries. So it's a tough competition, man, but you have a very unique, like I said, it is both subtle and jarring at the same time. It's a simple film. It is a very beautifully shot film. It seems very personal, but it does have a deeper global sort of message and question. And one of the things that I love about films is that you can go into it thinking one thing when you first see the first images pop on screen, and then by the end of it, you realize sort of what you were telling us the whole time, Jesus. So I appreciate you, and as a filmmaker, please make your make your films. Keep fighting the good fight on the political front, and as it gets closer to the election on my own stream, I'd love for you to come on so we can talk some more politics at length next time, man, because you seem like a real interesting cat. And thank you everybody for watching. Let me see. Let me make sure I got my branding right, because I already told you I spent a lot of money on that. But
Let's see it.
All right, I'll let this play, but after I end the stream, I'll talk to you for a couple of seconds off. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching Big Chief Burrito.